Thanks for joining us. And today we're going to talk about, is Kriya Yoga making you spiritually rigid? So Kriya Yoga is a much lauded spiritual path, and the meditation techniques that you learn in Kriya Yoga require some effort for sure. And so people who do Kriya Yoga, they're often seen as very disciplined, right? So depending on the tradition that you're involved in Kriya Yoga, if it's from the sort of monastic lineage of SRF and so on, it is very much about a set program of meditation twice a day and that kind of thing. If you are doing a Kriya Yoga householder path or so on, they may have other suggestions for the amount of practice that you do. But with Kriya Yoga, people can often spend numerous hours a day, a few times a day, doing Kriya Yoga. And the thing about Kriya Yoga, as we know, it is a very powerful technique for going inside, right? So this internalization, pratyahara, in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. So people who have gotten into Kriya Yoga realize like this meditation technique is powerful and it works quickly. If you do it correctly, right? Now there are a lot of different information about Kriya Yoga out there, and so people sometimes learn more degraded techniques from the original form taught by Lahiri Mahashai, but regardless, still the sort of pranayama technique does have that internalization aspect. It's just that some Kriya approaches are more effective than others. So rigidity. Now, especially if you have learned Kriya Yoga from a monastic lineage like Self-Realization Fellowship taught by Paramahansa Yogananda and his disciples, lines of disciples, Kriya Yoga can be somewhat dogmatic for some paths. And the idea is that, this is Kriya Yoga in this particular context where, they have this monastic focus. It is seen as sort of like the savior of humanity, right? It has all these very charged emotional values. So, especially if you believe like, we've been separated from God and, we need to find our way back, this kind of thing, people they feel like Kriya Yoga is a form of salvation, similar to some, Christian paths where, they believe that prayer and that kind of thing is like the salvation, the way to get from sort of the evil of the world to the purity of God, etc., right? And so this is a real misconception in spirituality, and the result of this is that people can get very dogmatic and rigid in their thinking and their ways of being, right? And this is not confined to Kriya Yoga, but I've certainly seen this in Kriya Yoga because I've been involved in it for a number of decades. And so I've seen the monastic side, I've seen the householder side, and I've seen sort of what some of the differences are. And I'm not to say one is better than the other, unless it's just about better techniques, and that's one thing. But the approach of sort of having this spiritual dogmatism and this, very like Kriya Yoga is like walking on a razor's edge kind of thing. This is not conducive to spiritual development at all. And I've talked about this in other videos where the trajectory of spiritual development is not real. You do not develop in a linear way. Just from your everyday experiences in life, if you just did one thing for the rest of your life and had no variability, you would not develop in a way that you need to. So you need to have experiences from different types of experiences, right? And when you change things up, it is good. Now, if we look at nature, as our experience on the earth is a process of continual change, right? Some people from some spiritual schools will say this is a delusion and these cycles are endless and it's all suffering, but this is a real misunderstanding of the way that things work on the earth and in the universe. Like it is really about a cyclical process of change, but not in a linear way. Things change, things shift. We need to have new sources coming into us, and we need to let go of things so that we can have a process of internal transformation, because that's what we're really doing. From conception to death, we're continuously changing. And what we want to do in spirituality is to open ourselves up to change in a positive way, right? This internal transformation, right? Which in some spiritual paths refer to as enlightenment and that kind of thing. So, but it is really about the process of change. It is not about leaving things behind and running away to some kind of higher transcendent realm. It is about making the change now, right? And that is why at Modern Kriya, our website, modernkriya.com, we're informed by a Taoist internal alchemy approach and by the householder lineage of Panchanan Bhattacharya in Kriya Yoga. We bring those two things together to have these very powerful practices for transformation, for inner transformation and transformation of things around you, right? So whereas some people in the Kriya community are very like, this Kriya is the only way, and it came from Babaji and from Lahiri Mahashai, and if we depart from it, we're going to the devil, right? Or whatever. Like the sort of rigidity of walking along a razor's edge on the spiritual path will not help at all. So there are a whole bunch of factors around you all the time that need you to develop sort of harmony and balance with, right? So in your work situation, right? Or if you're doing school or home life, you know, family life, all that kind of stuff, we are continuously bombarded by change and challenges, and our ability to adapt to that, to find out what is the state of balance and harmony within it, actually helps to improve our situation and the situation of those around us. And that's really what we're talking about for spiritual development. It is not about being on the rigid one-way trajectory path, right? Walking the spiritual razor's edge. This is a spiritual fantasy that, you know, some folks have talked about, and it really has a negative effect on people who are learning to develop spiritually in that way, right? It can really harm them because they're really looking to say, okay, this is the true way and everything else is wrong. I would reject all these things in the world, to the point where they're even rejecting their bodily existence, saying it's not real, or it's just, you know, it's not pure, all this kind of stuff. And really what that does is it creates a situation psychologically and of saying no to the world, of saying no to yourself, and to saying no to life, right? It's really taking steps towards your death, because you're basically saying, I don't want anything that's manifest. I want to go to the unmanifest absolute. And we are part of the sort of, you know, the greater universe, but we are not in a state of absolute, of unmanifest absolute. This is a spiritual fantasy. It's not realistic. And so we know that in the universe, it's continuously about creation and destruction. And so these cycles, these movements are happening at the micro level, even within our own bodies, in our body cells, and they're happening at the macrocosmic level, right? Cosmic levels, right? Stars, galaxies, you know, you name it, right? So all that stuff, it's like, really, what is harmony and balance? How can you adapt to what's going on? So central to your spiritual development is bringing yourself into a natural harmony and balance, and having a positive impact on things around you. So if you've been doing Kriya Yoga very, like, you know, 2 hours, you know, in the morning, you know, doing whatever you know, if it's 108 Kriya or more, right? And then just sitting there and thinking that you're going to change, you need to do more than that. It is not sufficient, right? That's why at Modern Kriya we bring in Taoist internal alchemy practices. The moving practices of meditation will help us to engage into our physical bodies, helping to anchor our spiritual development within our physical body, right? This is really, really essential. And in many spiritual paths, they just want to escape the body. But you need the body for internal development. You need it. And, you know, you have a role in this life, right? You have a role in the world around you to have some positive effect. So check out the videos on our website, modernkriya.com. We have many things around Kriya Yoga. You know, we have our teachings page, which has many, many videos on a wide variety of subjects: Kriya Yoga, Taoist internal alchemy, meditation, and that kind of stuff. We also have a membership section on our website where you can learn Kriya Yoga, where you can learn Taoist internal alchemy. So if you have any questions about this video, feel free to send me an email at info@modernkriya.com. Also check our website at modernkriya.com and our YouTube channel. So thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.